The first time I met Karen, she waved like a queen and smiled like a cat that had already eaten the canary and the plate it sat on. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, which, in hindsight, was less greeting and more advanced notice of a hostile takeover. My place sat on the edge of a sleepy cul-de-sac that smelled like fresh-cut grass and passive aggression. The kind of street where everyone owns a leaf blower and a hobby they tell you about unprovoked. My house. Small, stubborn, and paid for. I loved it the way you love an old mug with a chip, imperfect, but mine. My favorite part was the narrow strip of land along the fence. 10 feet of sun, weeds, and the world's most mediocre pear tree. It wasn't useful, but it was boundary line holy ground. I'd measured it when I closed. Twice. Karen lived next door in a cream-colored monument to beige ambition. Her lawn had that unnatural golf course shine, the kind that whispers, "I'm toxic, but photogenic." Her porch was staged year-round with seasonal signs. "Welcome spring, live laugh love, don't park here." Like the house itself had a Pinterest addiction. And then there was Karen. Blowout hair, sunglasses the size of dinner plates, and a permanent expression that said she'd been promoted to regional manager of your personal space. The first month, we kept it civil. I waved. She waved back like a monarch acknowledging a peasant who'd presented a satisfactory tax offering. She complained about last year's fireworks, the school drop-off line, the trash day schedule, and how this block used to have standards, which I assumed meant standards like hers. Loud, invisible, constantly shifting. The letter arrived on a Wednesday. Beige paper, cursive font, immediate rash. It was from the HOA, which, as far as I could tell, was mostly Karen and a printer. "Dear resident," it began, always a good sign. "We've noticed your side yard is underutilized." Underutilized is HOA for we want it. They suggested I consider aesthetic improvements, like a white fence for continuity. I read it twice, then put the kettle on and wondered if tea could be brewed from pure rage. I decided to ignore it with the dignity of a person who pays property taxes and refuses to be bullied by stationery. 2 days later, a polite tap-tap-tap at my door turned into Karen's face hovering in the window like a harvest moon. I opened up. "Just checking in," she trilled. "About the fence. The board agrees it would look so much better if it, aligned with ours." "The board," I said. "How many people is that?" She tilted her head the way pigeons do when they're calculating bread. 3, currently. "And 2 are you and your reflection?" She missed the joke, or, more likely, quarantined it. "We'll take care of the logistics," she said. "You just need to sign the variance." "Variance for what?" "For the extension," she said brightly. "We're adding a sunroom. Just a small bump out. It'll be cozy." Cozy, in Karen speak, sounded like 4 feet of entitlement. I told her I'd get back to her after I reviewed the paperwork and a bottle of aspirin. The paperwork never came. The noise did. Monday morning, 7:02 a.m., my alarm was a jackhammer solo featuring backup vocals by Screaming Tape Measure. I stumbled out in pajamas and a t-shirt that said, "Not today." On my side yard, men in fluorescent vests were staking neon flags like they'd discovered a new country and were naming it Karentopia. "Hey," I called. "Wrong yard." "Ma'am," the foreman said, "we're here for the Sunroom Foundation." "On whose authority?" I asked, which is a very adult way of saying, "Explain the nonsense." "Permit pulled by 12 Willow," he said, pointing at Karen's beige embassy. "We've got the survey." Karen glided out of her driveway like a victory parade. "Good morning," she sang. "So excited to get started." "You're building on my land," I said. She laughed the way people laugh when they think you're adorable and incorrect. "The survey says this swath is common use. It's practically a no man's land. We're just optimizing." Optimizing. My eye twitched so hard it could have powered a blender. "Show me the survey." She produced a stapled packet with more stamps than a lonely pen pal and flipped to a map that looked like a drunk spider had learned drafting. A bold line cut through my side yard like a knife. According to this, the fence was off. The line slid 5 feet into my property like it had rented a vacation home in my shade. "Where'd you get this?" I asked. "From a licensed professional," she said, stressing the last two words like they were immune to mistakes and bribery. Fantastic, I said. I have a licensed professional too, math. I grabbed the original plat from my closing folder. Old paper, crisp numbers, the kind of thing that smells like permanence. My line stayed where it belonged. 2 documents, 2 realities. Karen's eyes flicked from mine to the construction crew to the plat to the crew again. She smiled. Looks like a difference of opinion. Boundaries aren't opinions, I said. They're boundaries. She turned to the foreman. Proceed. To his credit, he hesitated. Then the concrete truck arrived, coughing diesel like a dragon with heartburn. The crew started digging, neat and efficient, shaving my strip of land with all the care of a barber who hates you. I filmed everything. Measurements. Stakes. Karen's pageant wave. Her sunroom outline creeping across my soil like a smug glacier. I called the city. The city said, submit a formal dispute. I called the county. The county said, survey variance protocol. I called my aunt, who said, put sugar in her gas tank, which I did not do because I like not going to jail. By noon, they had forms, rebar, and a trench that looked uncomfortably permanent. Karen leaned over the edge in a visor, sipping iced tea. It's going to be so tasteful, she said. And, you know, our home value lifts everyone's boat. Your boat is parked in my living room, I said. She blinked. It's barely 5 feet. Ah, yes. Barely. Just a dash of theft, chef's kiss. That evening, I stood in the dusk, staring at the rebar cage on my land like a modern sculpture titled Nerve. I paced the line and counted steps, the way you do when you're either calculating or plotting. Maybe both. Because here's the funny thing about building an extension across a boundary. Sometimes, if you do it wrong and sign the wrong papers, it stops being yours. I smiled into the dark, a little feral around the edges. If Karen wanted cozy, I could make cozy happen. Very, very legally. And in the morning, I went hunting for my own licensed professional. I found my licensed professional in a strip mall between a vape shop and a tax place that still used carpet. His name was Gus, and he had the resigned look of a man who had seen one too many DIY surveys printed from the internet. He showed up the next morning with a tripod, a laser, and the bedside manner of a saint. Karen oozed out of her house before he'd even popped the trunk. We already have a survey, she sang, like that should end math forever. Gus adjusted his cap. And I have gravity, he said, and started setting points. For 3 hours he clicked, measured, scribbled. The crew paused, pretending not to watch, which is construction for, we're absolutely watching. Karen hovered, pretending not to hover, which is Karen for, I'm trying to telepathically move your stakes. When Gus finally handed me the stamped report, he tapped a line with his pen. Fence is correct, he said. Your neighbor's extension crosses 5 feet 2 inches onto your parcel. That's not an opinion. That's coordinates. Coordinates, I repeated, like a toast. Karen's smile went stiff around the edges, like frosting in a heat wave. She snatched a glance and laughed. Well, your guy is wrong. Our guy is licensed. So is he, I said. And he brought gravity. Oh, the glare. You could have toast marshmallows in it. I emailed Gus's survey to the city, the county, the HOA inbox that auto-forwarded to Karen's phone. Don't ask me how I knew. The read receipts were practically screaming. Then I called an attorney. Real estate, gray suit, voiced like a granite countertop. Her name was Priya. She listened to the saga, then said the most beautiful sentence in the English language. Tell her to keep building. I blinked. Come again. Different states, different spices, she said. But here? If she knowingly builds a permanent structure on your land after notice, that portion is a fixture to your parcel. Translation, it becomes yours. The walls, the roof, the smug. You can force removal, or, you prefer irony. You can own it. I almost dropped the phone from sheer joy. What's step 1? Send formal notice, she said. Certified mail, return receipt. Attach both surveys. State that any encroaching improvements will be treated as improvements to your property. Also file a notice of encroachment with the county. It'll cloud her title like a thunderstorm. Consider me the weather, I said. By lunch, the crew had rebar like steel spaghetti laid across my dirt. I walked out with a clipboard and the polite smile of someone about to ruin your day administratively. Hi guys, I said. Nothing personal. Here's a copy of a certified notice that your boss's boss has received. Anything you build past these marked flags becomes my property. If you want to keep working, I'll bring lemonade. If you want to stop, I'll bring cookies. Either way, stay hydrated. Karen materialized so fast, I checked for trapdoors. You cannot talk to my contractors, she snapped. Correct, I said. I can talk to my contractors. They're building on my land. She tried the stare. I gave her an A for effort and an F for results. The concrete truck wheezed in. The foreman, a man whose skull was 70% baseball cap, scratched his cheek. Ma'am, he said to Karen, this could be a problem. Karen's smile reappeared, fully weaponized. We have a permit. You have a permit for a sunroom, I said. Not a land grab. She turned to me with that kindergarten teacher tone that always precedes an email. If you keep obstructing, the HOA will fine you. For what? I asked. Owning things. She flinched, then waved at the foreman. Pour it. And they did. A shiny gray tongue rolled into the trench, hot and permanent, gossiping as it went. I filmed it like a nature documentary. Behold, the rare concrete of consequences in its native habitat. Priya filed the notice of encroachment that afternoon. I printed it and slid a copy into Karen's mailbox with the delicacy of a wedding invite. Certified copies went to the county recorder. A digital copy went to my cloud, my mother, and my group chat labeled Chaos Club. Neighbors started drifting past for exercise, which is neighborhood for give us the tea. I poured generously. At dusk, Karen knocked. Not the friendly tap. This was a moral percussion solo. I opened the door and watched her try to arrange her face into neighborly concern. It came out like a hostage video. Let's be reasonable, she said. You're making this tense. Me? I looked at the slab glowing in my yard like a parking lot for bad ideas. I'm a ray of sunshine. You can't just take it, she hissed. It's attached to our home. Yet, I said, give it a week. She inhaled so sharply her visor almost levitated. The HOA will not stand for this. Then the HOA better sit, I said. Also, quick note, your extension crosses the fire setback. The city inspector might care. Her expression did long division and lost. We're grandfathered, she said. Not how grandfathers work, I said. She pivoted to the crew, who were cleaning tools like men who wanted to be anywhere else. We're ahead of schedule, she announced. Tomorrow, framing. Perfect, I said. I'll bake brownies for my new sunroom. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table like tarot cards, surveys, notices, emails with timestamps that glowed like runway lights. I could feel the neighborhood buzz from my porch, a low hum of scandal. I slept the sleep of someone who had put a legal bear trap on her property and baited it with ego. Morning. A symphony of nail guns. The skeleton of a sunroom climbed out of the slab, ribs of lumber arcing into my airspace. I brought the crew lemonade because I am, above all things, a hospitable landowner. Careful with that header, I said sweetly. That's going to be my favorite spot for plants. Ma'am, the foreman said, somewhere between baffled and concerned. Long story, I said. Short version, label everything. I'll need an inventory for the property transfer. And as the walls rose, so did I, a little wickedly. I had mailed the warning. I had recorded the cloud. And now, Karen was building me a present with great enthusiasm. All I had to do was unwrap it properly. By Friday, the sunroom had a roof skeleton, 3 walls, and a distinct smell of cedar arrogance. Every nail was another step toward my legal Christmas morning. Karen, meanwhile, was parading it like a trophy. She'd stand out front when the school bus came, talking loudly about her upgrade to anyone within earshot. I overheard lines like, it's going to be the nicest room on the block, and some people don't understand community improvement. Translation, she was using my land to one-up the Joneses, and I was the Jones she wanted to crush. The neighborhood grapevine was in overdrive. Mrs. Harlow across the street told me she'd overheard Karen on the phone with the board, aka herself and 2 retired golf buddies, ranting about obstructionist neighbors. The phrase, "we can bulldoze if we have to," apparently made an appearance, which was adorable because Karen's HOA authority was about as real as her hair color. By now, Priya had prepped everything: timelines, notices, photographs, and a little legal cherry on top called an affidavit of intent to claim improvements. It was a beautifully dry piece of paperwork that basically said, "Yup, that's mine now. Filed, stamped, public record." The county clerk even smirked when she saw the name, Karen, in the description. Once it's finished, Priya told me, "We send one final letter, acceptance of the improvement. Then, you can either keep it or charge her rent." I nearly choked on my coffee. "I can charge her rent for her own room?" "Market rate," Priya said, without blinking. Oh, I was starting to like her. The framing wrapped up, and windows went in. Karen picked something with fake antique grills, like a Victorian tea parlor had collided with a dentist's office. I was fine with it. I'd already decided that when it was mine, it would make an excellent greenhouse/reading nook. When the siding started going up, I made my move. Armed with a tape measure, I strolled out mid-hammer. "Morning," I called, just checking the square footage for my insurance records. Karen's head popped out of the half-finished doorway like a prairie dog. "Your insurance?" "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't want my new addition uninsured." "You keep saying that," she snapped. "It's not your addition." I handed her a copy of the affidavit. "It's filed. It's notarized. It's more official than your HOA bylaws." She didn't take it, just stared at the stamp like it was a death warrant. "You're bluffing." "Sweetheart," I said, "if I were bluffing, I'd have folded by now." 2 days later, Karen tried to pull a power move. I came home to find a tall, ugly chain-link fence wrapped around the sunroom like a prison yard. Her side of the fence had a shiny lock. My side. She'd left the post just inside her survey line, which, according to my actual survey, meant the fence was also, you guessed it, on my property. I took pictures from every angle and sent them to Priya, who replied, "She's gift-wrapping your room and your fence now." By Sunday, the crew had installed the roof shingles. The structure was sealed, beautiful in that smug, cookie-cutter way. And here's where Karen made her fatal move. She decorated. Curtains, patio chairs, a potted fern. I even spotted a hanging sign that said "Sun-kissed and blessed." It was the HOA equivalent of planting a flag on the moon. Except this moon was about to change owners. Monday morning, I had Priya draft the final letter. Notice of acceptance of improvement. As previously documented, the recently constructed sunroom encroaches upon my property by approximately 5 feet 2 inches for the full depth of the structure. Pursuant to state property law regarding fixtures built on another's parcel after notice, I accept the encroaching structure as a permanent improvement to my property. Ownership is effective immediately. We sent it certified. I watched Karen's reaction from my kitchen window as she read it. First came the squint, then the laugh, short, sharp, disbelieving, then the pacing, then the phone call, during which she gestured so violently toward my yard I thought she might launch herself into the siding. That evening, she knocked. No smile this time. "You can't do this," she said flatly. "I already did," I said. "You won't get away with it." "Oh, Karen," I said, leaning on the doorframe. "I'm not getting away with anything. I'm just standing very, very still while you build me things." The next morning, I slid the "Property of Me" sign into the dirt right in front of the sunroom. Just for the aesthetic. Karen ripped it out before lunch. I replaced it before dinner. The game was on. The morning after the "Property of Me" sign wore, I woke up to the sound of silence. No hammering, no sawing. Just a strange, tense stillness. When I peeked outside, I saw why. The crew was gone. Karen stood in the sunroom doorway on her phone, pacing like she was trying to wear a path straight through the slab. She spotted me and gave a tight little wave that looked like it hurt. I waved back cheerfully, coffee in hand. By noon, the quiet was shattered by a new arrival, a man in khakis, sunglasses, and a clipboard. "Inspector." He walked the property with a laser measurer, jotting notes. When he reached the setback line, he frowned. When he saw my survey stakes, he frowned harder. Karen hovered, doing the "I'm just here to help" routine, which mostly involved interrupting him every 40 seconds to explain how everyone agreed it was fine. Finally, he knocked on my door. "Ma'am, you're aware this addition crosses your property line?" he asked. "Oh yes," I said brightly. "I even accepted it as mine. Got the paperwork if you want to see it." He blinked. "Accepted it?" I handed him the affidavit and the certified letter to Karen. He read them, eyebrows doing an interpretive dance. Then he let out a short laugh. He clearly tried to swallow. "Well, that's thorough." Karen jumped in. "She's lying. This is an HOA matter." "Actually, ma'am," the inspector said, "this is a zoning matter. And according to zoning, the structure also violates fire code." Karen froze like someone had just unplugged her. "What? Setback to the property line's too small for a structure this size. You'd need to remove or modify it." My coffee never tasted so sweet. That evening, she went full campaign mode. Flyers appeared in mailboxes, "Stop Property Bullies" in bold red letters, with my house's silhouette as the villain. She accused me of weaponizing loopholes and hurting property values. Mrs. Harlow gave me a copy while laughing so hard she nearly cried. Weaponizing loopholes. Like you've got a secret legal bazooka. The next HOA meeting, aka Karen's living room, was standing room only. Neighbors came for the drama and the free Costco cookies. I showed up with a manila folder and a smile. Karen started with her speech about community spirit and shared spaces. I waited until she brought up my name, then pulled out the certified letter and read it aloud, ending with, "Therefore, under state law, the sunroom is now a permanent fixture of my property." The room went dead silent. Then Mr. Daly, 2 houses down, coughed and said, "So, she built you a free room?" "Exactly," I said. "And it's lovely." Half the room chuckled. A few people clapped. Karen's face did that thing where someone tries to keep smiling, but their eye twitches like a dying moth. The meltdown came 2 days later. I was watering my tomatoes when I heard the crash, the unmistakable sound of metal meeting pavement. Karen had backed her SUV right into the temporary construction dumpster in her driveway. Lawn chairs tumbled out like defeated soldiers. She got out, slammed the door, and stomped toward me. "You think you've won? You haven't won." I shrugged. "Looks pretty win-like from here." "You're going to regret this," she said. "Maybe," I said. "But every time I sit in my sunroom and drink coffee, I'll feel better." She sputtered, spun, and stormed back inside. By Friday, the gossip had evolved into a neighborhood sport. People slowed their cars just to glance at the infamous joint property line. Mrs. Harlow swore she'd heard Karen arguing with a contractor about moving the entire wall 6 inches. Priya called me with an update. She's filed for a variance. It's not going to get approved with that violation on record. "Perfect," I said. "While she's busy, I'll get curtains." And I did. Bright yellow, just visible enough from her kitchen window to remind her every morning exactly who owned the space she thought she'd stolen. Next step? Making it official in the loudest way possible. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that Karen hates 2 things more than anything: being wrong and people knowing she's wrong. So naturally, my final move was going to be public, documented, and impossible to ignore. Step 1. Furniture. Not just any furniture. Bold, unapologetic furniture. A bright red love seat, a ridiculous floor lamp shaped like a flamingo, and a coffee table with mine painted across it in gold block letters. Step 2. A party. I sent out invites titled, "Sunroom Warming Party. Thanks, Karen. Come celebrate my new legally acquired addition. Drinks and snacks provided. P.S. BYO lawn chair if you want to sit in the Karen Annex." The RSVP rate was obscene. The day of, I propped the doors wide open so the smell of fresh-baked cookies and petty triumph could drift across the block. The place looked amazing. My plants lined the windows, the flamingo lamp stood proud, and the love seat practically glowed like a taunt in furniture form. Neighbors trickled in, bringing wine, snacks, and enough curiosity to fuel a gossip column for months. Every single person asked the same question: "She really built this on your land?" And every single time, I smiled and said, "Yup, best free gift I've ever gotten." Karen, shockingly, was not in attendance, but I knew she was watching. I caught her blinds twitch more than once. Halfway through, Mr. Daly raised a toast. To our neighbor, who taught us all the value of reading the survey. Laughter. Applause. Someone shouted. And to free real estate. I could practically feel the steam coming from next door. 2 weeks later, the city officially denied her variance. The inspector's report was brutal. Encroachment confirmed. Structure fails to meet setback requirements. Ownership dispute resolved in favor of adjacent property owner. In other words, game, set, match. Priya called to confirm everything was now unshakable. It's yours, she said. Forever. Unless you decide to sell it back to her, which I'd recommend at about 3 times market value if you want to be extra spicy. Oh, I'm keeping it, I said. This is family heirloom territory now. The final nail in Karen's coffin came not from me, but from her own allies. Or former allies. The 2 HOA buddies who used to nod along to everything she said. They stopped by my sunroom for coffee one morning. Turns out, even they were tired of her antics. She's intense, one of them admitted. We're thinking of restructuring the board. I sipped my coffee. Good idea. Start fresh. Less annexing. By the end of the month, Karen had resigned from the HOA presidency for personal reasons. Neighborhood translation. She lost every ounce of support she ever had. Now, she avoids me entirely. Crosses the street. Pretends to check her phone if we're both outside. And every morning when I open my blinds, I make sure the flamingo lamp is on, glowing like a neon sign that says, "Don't start wars you can't win." Sometimes I sit in my free sunroom with a cup of tea, looking at that strip of land she thought was hers, and I think, I almost feel bad for her. Almost. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.